Well, just 3 match days to go in this championship season, and nobody wants to win promotion, do they? Well, maybe just Southampton based on the last week. It's been a bonkers few days, and last weekend's predictions were difficult for us all. But this week we come back with renewed optimism and a bit of hope of success in matchday 44. As always, I'll encourage you to get involved in the comments below as I'm giving my predictions. Give me yours as well. And if you beat or match my overall score this weekend, you'll get a shout out in the next full recap, which will be next Thursday, looking ahead to next weekend's penultimate fixture list. There are a couple of games in midweek, which we'll do a special for on Sunday. Premier League preview tomorrow as well. But for now, it's all about the championship. And before we move on to matchday 44, let's have a look back at the horror show that was matchday 43. Because I managed to pick up 6 points in a bonkers weekend. None of the top 3 won. I did correctly predict one of those though, a 1-1 draw for Ipswich Town. I got another point for the wins for Hull, Southampton and Swansea. And a lot of the other fixtures were just bizarre. I almost went for 1-0 Norwich, which makes me super frustrated. But it was a low scoring weekend all round. A lot of you unfortunately got less than 6, which I don't blame you for this week. 6 of you joined me level on 6 points. Daniel, who got 6 correct outcomes, and then all with 1 perfect score. Ojo, Reese, Bobby, Teo and Brian. On to 7 points, pipping us by 1. Peter with 1 perfect score. Lewis with 2 perfect scores. You only needed 3 correct outcomes to beat us. And then the top 3, we've got Swifty on 8 with 1 perfect score. Chris on 9 with 1 perfect score. And all hail George at the top with 10, the West Brom fan. 2 perfect scores, both the championship's favourite scoreline. You know what you're doing and win matchday 43. Fun fact from that weekend as well. All of those level or ahead of me with the perfect score predictions this weekend. Only 3 of them weren't for a championship's favourite scoreline. So well done to the 3 of you that managed that. A quick look at the midweek prediction as well for the rearranged game between Southampton and Preston. I, like everyone in the comments, went for a Southampton win. Wasn't quite as nervy as I predicted, was it? Preston a little more open than we used to. But Southampton won by 3-0. I get 1 point for that. Nobody actually called the 3-0 victory. But let me give a shout out to all of you who got 1 point as well. W&G, Steve, Daniel, Chris, Slav, Mello, Brian, Teo, Peter, all predicted Southampton to win. So 1 point each for all of you level with me. And now we move on to matchday 44, where I have officially given up trying to be sensible. And I'm just going to go with my hunch predictions, whatever I feel at the top of my head. Because generally at this stage of the season, that's pretty much the best way of doing it. We start on Saturday lunchtime with a huge game in the race for promotion and the playoffs. It is Leicester City versus West Bromwich Albion, 2 sides that were surprisingly defeated by 1-0 last week. That's 3 1-0 defeats in 5 games for Leicester. Away at Plymouth, they look largely uninspired. They obviously gave away that early goal against a side that wanted to counter them. And look, they did dominate the ball. They did create some good chances. But again, that cutting edge just hasn't been there in recent weeks. Daka missed an absolute sitter. Vardy had a tough time as well when he came on. It really is just crying out for a bit of calm and composure. And at the moment, Leicester do appear to be panicking. They stay in second because of the other games going wrong. With Southampton coming up in midweek, they need to find form because, my word, the Saints are flying. West Brom defeated 1-0 at home to Sunderland. The game probably hinged on that red card just before the break. Sunderland then scored in first half stoppage time and were able to keep the clean sheet in the second half. West Brom just not able to break them down, and with 10 men that was just a little harder, particularly with one of their attacking stars being sent off. So a bad weekend for both of them. West Brom are virtually in the playoffs now because of other results. Coventry and Hull will basically have to win all of their games, including the one in hand. And of course, one of those is against each other. So it's only going to be one team that can realistically catch them. The other teams, Middlesbrough, Preston, now too far away. So it looks like West Brom will make it anyway. For them, it's only 1 win in 5. For Leicester, 2 home wins and then lots of away defeats recently. But does that home form mean there's going to be a victory here? West Brom nearly always draw away. Leicester nearly always win at home. I think I'm going to go a little bit safe on this one. West Brom don't concede or create many chances. Leicester have struggled to break down cautious defensive teams, and Carlos Corberán's the master of that. So I'm going to go without the outball of Thomas Asante for West Brom, with, of course, a few strikers out now. I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline. A moment of magic for each, perhaps, and a 1-1 draw at the King Power. As we move on to the 3 p.m. kickoffs and another team well back in promotion contention, Southampton travelled to Cardiff City, who were beaten pretty comfortably at Millwall last week. Really disappointing performance from them. Didn't create an awful lot despite having more of the ball. They actually picked up a couple of good away wins recently, but their home form has been pretty poor. Against Sunderland and Hull, they were comfortably beaten, and the Saints go marching on. They had a nervy day on Saturday. I predicted another one on Tuesday. It was far from that. They were flawless against Preston. One little hairy moment at 3-0 up, but with a backup goalkeeper in because of a late injury, to dominate the game, to create chances like that. Yes, Preston aren't the most ambitious on the road, but they were fabulous going forward, and they probably could have scored more. So for this game, I have to go with a Southampton juggernaut. I'm almost leaning towards them as maybe favourites to get in there now, because with Leicester and Leeds to come away from home, where there's going to be that pressure of the home crowd, it's almost better to be on the road on that occasion. I feel like they can do it. Having said that, they've won their last 3 home games, Southampton. Before that, away from home, struggled at Blackburn, beaten late on against Ipswich. I think they win this game. Cardiff have got nothing to play for. Southampton to win by 2-0. Next up, we move on to a big game at the bottom for Huddersfield Town, who host Swansea City. Pegged back late on against Bristol City, a 100th minute penalty to stop Huddersfield getting 3 points and staying out of the relegation zone. Birmingham obviously won to climb above them, and they are now looking like there's only a few teams to catch with 3 games to go. Heartbreak after scoring late as well. They played well. They probably just about edged it and deserved it, but unfortunately just couldn't cling on. And defensively, Huddersfield this season, not always been the best. They have loved a 1-1 draw though. At home, they did win against Millwall last time, and they're going to need that going into this game against Swansea. They themselves took advantage of home comforts with 2 wins at home to Stoke and Rotherham. That's moved them comfortably up to mid-table, and now, barring a huge goal difference swing and a remarkable set of results, I don't think they can get relegated. So 9 points clear with 3 to go. They've got to be thrilled. Luke Williams did the job, got through that horrible spell at the start, and then managed to pick up some wins against rivals around him. I don't know whether they're going to react to having nothing to play for, because there's still quite a few there probably playing for their futures. And although it wasn't a vintage performance against a very defensive Rotherham team, they're coming up against a side in Huddersfield that will have to come out and attack them. And I feel that suits Swansea's style a bit more, because if they can beat the press, they'll be able to fly in behind. I think they're going to win this game. I think Huddersfield will have to go aggressive. I think that might be their undoing. I was tempted with the 1-1 draw. I'm going to go for Swansea by 2-1. As we move on to a side that probably just need one more win to secure a playoff place now, it is Norwich City versus Bristol City. 2 of the form teams in the Championship actually in the last 6. 4 wins out of those 6 for Norwich City. 3 for Bristol City, who are unbeaten in 5, thanks to that 100th minute penalty against Huddersfield. We talked about the great form they'd been in, then they were pretty dismal against Huddersfield in truth, but they kept the unbeaten run going. They're doing okay. What a great side they are when there's no pressure on them. For Norwich, there was a big bit of pressure away at Preston. They were the aggressors, as we predicted. Preston only had a couple of shots on target all game. Norwich fairly solid defensively, getting blocks in last ditch and created the moment in the end. They deserved to win the game just about, and they've been really fantastic this second half of the season. David Wagner deserves massive credit, because there were a lot of Norwich fans that wanted him out in early January, and he has turned that ship around. A bit of a lesson for Championship clubs to stick with your managers, because you look at the longer serving ones now, and they're generally up near the top of the division, aren't they? So Norwich City, very much in form. Bristol City, the last game didn't convince me. Away at Sunderland and Plymouth, they were very astute defensively. But I just feel Norwich are going to press them high and catch them playing out. We've seen Bristol City struggle with these types of games before. And at home, Norwich have been just formidable this year. They've only dropped 2 points, I think, in the calendar year at home. And I'm going to go for them to keep that record up with a convincing 3-1 win at home to Bristol City. As we move on to another big game in a relegation battle, as already relegated Rotherham United host Birmingham City, who moved out of the relegation zone with, well, a pretty exemplary 3-0 home win against Coventry. It was a masterclass tactically with less than 30% of the ball, but creating more of the chances. And on the counter, they were fantastic. I mean, you've got to give massive credit to them. Not sure what happened to Coventry, but they've got an FA Cup semi-final to worry about, which is why we're a game short this weekend. But Birmingham, a very deserved victory. For Tony Mowbray's sake, I hope they stay up. And of course, Gary Rowett coming in and doing a decent job as well. But all of this would have been so avoidable if they just kept John Eustace, wouldn't it? For the Rotherham game, look, they don't offer much, do they? 1-0 defeat against Swansea. They basically played for a draw. They didn't have a shot on target. There's not much to say about them. They've got no goal threat whatsoever, bar that one game against Millwall. 5 out of 6 blanks. I'm going for the same again. Birmingham to win comfortably away from home by 2-0 and maybe drag a few more back into the relegation mix. As we move on to two of those sides that might get dragged back in, certainly if there's a loser in this game, they might be looking over their shoulder. It is Stoke City versus Plymouth Argyle. Stoke with, in the end, a crucial point away at Sheffield Wednesday. Got back on terms after falling behind and kept Wednesday 3 points behind them. They were second best in that game, and if Wednesday had taken their clear chances, I mean, it could have been a very comfortable home win. One of the things I've credited Stoke for is playing well generally under Schumacher. That weren't one of those games. The pressure got to them and they played pretty poorly, but they got a point, and that's the most important thing, just as they did at home to Huddersfield. For Plymouth, a brilliant 1-0 win against Leicester. The fans were loving it. It was a counter-attacking masterclass, that goal, and they had 2 or 3 other opportunities like that as well. They do have Leicester to thank for missing a couple of great chances. I mean, there was one Patson Daka. He had acres of space, loads of time, and he just sliced it with his left foot. But it was just one of those games you get late in a season. Leicester, under pressure, couldn't get back into it, and the early goal proved enough for Plymouth, who, on a serious note, I do hope stay up, because if we do go down with Luton, it's a ground I need to tick off and one I've always wanted to visit. But that's the only bias I've got there. For this game, I'm not sure they're going to be able to secure their safety, because I think Stoke at home in recent times against West Brom, pretty good. I know they were poor against Norwich, but they're a very good side. At home to teams in and around them. They got the draw against Huddersfield. And in that game, you've got to be fair, they played pretty well. They created the better chances. I think they'll do the same here. And they'll probably take their chances more than Leicester at the moment. So I'm going for Stoke to beat Plymouth by 2-1. As we move on to a game that's probably not got anything riding on it, because Sunderland host Millwall in a mid-table clash. And that is a huge credit to Neil Harris that we're saying that. Millwall up to 50 points, would need a mad sequence of events to go down, but probably would like one more point. They got a 3-1 win at home to Cardiff to back up that big win at home to Leicester. And it was a ruthless counter-attacking display again. They did create the better chances. They deserved to win the match. Cardiff had more of the ball. Millwall let them do that. But Neil Harris making a real big impact there. And of course, doing the job by securing safety. Sunderland, 3 clean sheets in a row after that horror show against Blackburn. A 1-0 win away at West Brom, where they took advantage of that red card just before the break. Wasn't a glorious performance. They didn't really go on and completely dominate the game second half in terms of creating loads of chances or whatever. But they did the job. And after that Blackburn game, we sort of predicted this, thinking it would be about respectability and keeping it tight at the back. Of course, they've sort of ruined their season since sacking Mowbray. They've got nothing to play for now. I don't think this game's going to be the highest scoring one. There was a big part of me that wanted to go for 0-0, but I feel Sunderland have got a slight frailty to defensive set pieces at their worst. I feel Millwall will sit very deep. Sunderland have got the odd player who can produce a moment of magic from 25-30 yards. So as a result of that, I'm giving the benefit of a doubt. I'm going to go for a goal apiece. Let both have a moment to celebrate, and Millwall will probably be thrilled with that, because with 51, they won't be going down. The final 3 p.m. kickoff is Watford versus Hull City. Hull a realistic chance to make the playoffs. If they can win that game and beat Coventry in midweek, they'll feel like they've got a real opportunity, depending on other results above them, of course. For Watford, it is now 5 without a win. Yes, they've played some tough games. I think 4 of the top 5 in that time. They've drawn 4 of them. Again, they gave Southampton a go. And it's the thing I do want to give credit for, because from 2-0 down and out, they fought their way back into the game and they looked to threat on the counter. So some promising sides from Tom Cleverley's side, but not consistent enough to threaten. And of course, it's been another wasted season for them, hasn't it? In the end, undone in a 99th minute. For Hull, a really good performance at home to QPR. A good win, some really decent goals. And while they didn't create hundreds of chances, they were composed, they were comfortable. And while QPR wasted a couple of chances, it didn't really look in doubt after they got the third just after the break. So another really composed whole display, 6 points off the playoffs with a game in hand. If they can get through this one, it makes that Coventry game massive. What a midweek prediction that's going to be. For now, though, I'm going to go for Hull to win a very narrow game. It was a couple of 0-0s for Watford before the thriller at Southampton. Hull have been scoring goals, but they don't always score a huge amount on the road over the season. So I'm going to go for an ugly 1-0 win here and Hull City to do what they need to stay in the playoff race. On to the late kickoff, and its attention back to the bottom of the Championship, because guess who's back in the battle? QPR are at home to Preston North End. Both sides lost 3-0 in their last game. QPR beaten by Hull, as we just mentioned. Had a couple of chances to make it a lot closer, but defensively just weren't good enough. And look, we've talked about QPR not being able to take chances all year. They're probably a goal scorer away from being a mid-table side, and a couple of defensive players and a bit of energy in midfield from being a very good one. But they haven't got that at the moment. For now, just 3 points clear of the battle. Maybe just an edge that they thought they were safe, and wasting those opportunities against teams around them in Plymouth and Sheffield Wednesday to secure their safety might end up coming to bite them. Having said that, Preston have now gone 2 games without scoring. They've got nothing to play for. They've been really poor against Southampton in midweek. 1 shot at all in the game, 22% of the ball, and Southampton toyed with them. They took the mick. Preston tried to sit deep, and Southampton just played triangles round them. It was Menvy boys for the most part. Against Norwich the week before, that was probably the damaging one, wasn't it? 1-0 at home to the playoff rival, and if they'd won that game, they would have still been in the mix. But for this game, nothing to play for Preston. QPR haven't really got a goal scorer. I can see them conceding, but will they score? It's either 1-0 Preston, but I always go for that. Let's have the Championship's favourite scoreline, 1 apiece. Another huge one for 2 sides looking to secure their safety. It is Blackburn Rovers versus Sheffield Wednesday. Blackburn bounced back from that 5-0 defeat against Bristol City with a massive 1-0 win at Leeds. Sammy Szmodic scored the goal, and a bit like the Plymouth-Leicester game, they had to ride their luck a few times. Leeds missed a few good chances, but Blackburn defensively were throwing bodies on the line, and on a counter-attack, they've got the top scorer in the Championship, which is all they're going to need. Not sure what they're going to do next season when he inevitably gets snapped up somewhere, though. This is the type of game where they've got to get a result, though, because they probably just need 1 more win for safety, arguably only 1 or 2 points. But Sheffield Wednesday could make it nervy because they are 5 points behind and in the relegation zone. If they win this one, you're suddenly looking at a 2-point gap to them. They drew against Stoke City in a game where they were by far the better side. They created a couple of great opportunities, but just didn't take them, and it's the story of the season for some of those sides down there. Obviously, Ike Ugbo had that brilliant spell when he came into the team in January, just not finding the back of the net with the same regularity now. And that's going to end up costing them, I think, because they're doing enough. They're playing really well under Danny Roll, but they're not finding a way to win the games. Blackburn, bar the Bristol City game, have been fairly solid under Eustace. They've not conceded many goals. Certainly at home, that's the case under him. Sheffield Wednesday, normally the opposite. They've tried to have a creative threat. They've tried to counter with numbers, but at the back, they're not the tidiest. I feel Sheffield Wednesday have to win this game. If they do, it's going to cause a thrilling final 2 games, and that's what we want as a neutral. So I'm going to go for a bit of excitement at the bottom. I'm going to go for Sheffield Wednesday to win at Blackburn by 2-1. That will make things tight down there. And the final game is on Monday night. It is Middlesbrough versus Leeds United. A huge game for Leeds, who have had a few bad days now. Against Coventry, Sunderland and Blackburn, 1 goal and 1 point from 3 matches. Borough are in form, okay, a couple of tough draws away from home have probably now ruled out their playoff chances, but they've been hard to beat. They've been a threat on a counter-attack. And defensively, by the whole game, they've been pretty solid too. And with Leeds struggling to take chances and score goals at the crucial time, my tips for the title look like they might be falling away. This game for me is a must-win for them. And arguably this style of game could suit them because on the counter against Middlesbrough is where they struggle the most defensively. You've seen the games where Borough have been able to defend a bit deeper and hit on the counter themselves. They've been a lot stronger. I just wonder if it's going to be a case of who takes their chances, because Middlesbrough had some great ones against Ipswich, as did Ipswich against them. But we've seen Leeds not taking opportunities. The Blackburn game, another great example of that. In another day, those two games against Blackburn and Sunderland could have been 6 points. But the Blackburn game, a dominant display, no goal to show for it. What do I go for here? I have to back Leeds to win it. I said they were going to win the title. I've got Leicester to draw. Ipswich aren't playing. So I have to go for Leeds to take advantage. I'm going to go for them to win. And I'm going to go ugly. There'll be loads of chances in the game. But Leeds will only win it by 1-0. With that out of the way then, let's have a quick recap of what we've gone for in the 11 matches this weekend. A reminder, Coventry v Ipswich off due to Coventry's FA Cup semi-final. I've gone for one team to score 3. That is Norwich at home to Bristol City to wrap up their playoff place. I've also gone for West Brom to get a point to do exactly the same for them. At the bottom of the table, big wins for Sheffield Wednesday at Blackburn and for Stoke at home to Plymouth. I've also gone for Birmingham to get that win away at Rotherham. And at the top, I've boldly gone for Leeds to take advantage at Middlesbrough as Leicester get held by West Brom by 1 goal apiece. Southampton to close the gap yet further. Those are my predictions for matchday 44. Do you agree or disagree with them? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, give me your predictions for this weekend's action. We will be back on Sunday evening with a midweek special previewing the game on Tuesday and Wednesday night. Leicester Southampton, a massive one. Coventry Hull could be a similar thing depending on Hull's result at the weekend. And then of course on Thursday we'll look ahead to another weekend, the penultimate one of the championship season. If you want to stay up to date with all of the action and predictions during the run-in, subscribe and turn that notification bell on. We got plenty of content from other leagues this week as well. A Premier League preview and prediction show tomorrow. League One shorts coming as well. And then on Sunday, back again with a championship. It's a massive week. The end of the National League season means we've got playoff predictions there soon as well. So come and keep your eyes peeled for all of that. Thank you so much for watching as always. I hope you're looking forward to a massive run-in across the divisions. And I'll see you back here tomorrow as we start that with a weekend Premier League preview.